Please stand for the acknowledgements. We acknowledge this land that we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the Kaurna people today. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting or attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who gave their lives for this country and its people. We pray for understanding and guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all those who reside, study, work in and visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. If you have no members in the gallery, I would ask them to be respectfully and silent. I will not, but I just remind everybody about their mobile phones to make sure that they are switched on to silent. And a reminder about first the buzzer indicates who wishes to speak on a motion once we begin. So, apologies, we have nil. Apologies, we have nil. I just realised I didn't have my microphone on. Leave of absence, we have nil. Confirmation of minutes. Motion, please. Councillor Cornish. Seconded, Councillor Lemon. Those in favour? Carried. And I'm told we don't need to use the word unanimously. Deputations, nil. Petitions, nil. Public question time, nil. Dog management, Hazelwood Park. You have a response on your desk. Motions on notice. For the first time, we haven't any. Questions without notice?
Nope.
Motions without notice. Councillor Piggott.
Yes. I'd like to propose a motion without notice, if I may, that any meeting called for council to consider the final appointment of the Chief Executive Officer should include distribution of CVs and covering letters relevant to any candidates still under consideration.
Can I suggest
prior.
Confidential in front of distribution?
Yep.
Please.
At least 48 hours prior to the meeting. And I'm happy to have any official review of that motion. Does that work?
How do we know when such a meeting has been called?
There's already been a special meeting called.
But we don't know that if it relates...
The agenda has been provided.
No,
It doesn't say anything.
it doesn't say.
Because I have not had a chance, I have been busy flat out all day today, and until I confirm some issues to do with the timing of the meeting and the support we're going to get from Morton Phillips, which I only did this morning, I am going to send out an email later tonight to give you full information, or as much information as possible, about the timing and the organisation of the afternoon.
I'm not sure where that came from. Could the motion say that the CV is provided ahead of the meeting on Saturday?
The plan originally was for you to be provided them prior to the meeting starting on Saturday. Now the issue is that this is a request to have at least 48 hours before.
Yeah, correct. No, I'm just saying that that motion doesn't necessarily achieve that because the agenda doesn't actually refer it back to that, because there's not sufficient clarity as to what meeting that motion refers to.
I'm happy with the motion. Thank you for the input in it, but I think it does do what I want it to do. So if you'll allow me to speak to that, yeah?
Yes, and then I'll seek a second.
The question of the calling of the meeting, I think, is outside of this. So all this motion is seeking is that it requires that when that meeting is called, that at least 48 hours prior, the information about any candidates still in play should be distributed to all elected members for their consideration ahead of time. And the reason why I'm doing this is that the committee did for reasons of maximising, I guess, confidentiality. With our consultants proposed a providing of that information to elected members at the meeting and some time to actually review it before going any further. That on reflection seems inappropriate. And so what we'd like to do as a council, what I'd like council to do, I guess, is to come over the committee in this case, but to actually pass this motion so that it allows us then to now distribute them 48 hours ahead of time rather than just at the meeting. So that's what we're trying to do. I hope that's clear. If it's not, please tell me and I'll try and fix it up in the...
Do we have a seconder, please?
The end.
Councillor Jones.
I'm happy to second and I don't need to speak.
Anyone wish to speak? Councillor Davis?
Yes, I have a question. Does the administration understand that this motion relates to the special council meeting on the 26th of October at 2 p.m? Given that you don't know what's in the agenda. Because it says final appointment. So my question is, this motion says to consider any special meeting called to consider the final appointment. I don't know if on Saturday we are considering the final appointment of the CEO or not. I don't know that. Because there has been no agenda or no motion or nothing provided to me in relation to this. So does this motion, and can the administration say, and say for certain, that this motion relates to the meeting on Saturday or not? If that's how they interpret it, then that's fine.
Suggestion from our governance officer is that we change the word appointment to candidates for the CEO. According to our governance officer, that covers us.
Okay, so you...
Okay with that
Let me ask
proposal of the motion?
Yeah, I am. I'm not sure it answers the question.
Linda, you are okay with that? Councillor Jones?
So let me ask the question again with that change. Does the administration consider that this motion requires that the administration provide all elected members with the CVs of any candidates to be considered for the meeting that is to be called on the 26th of October at 2 p.m?
Yes.
That is the...
Okay, thank you.
But it isn't the administration that supplied. Comes from our recruitment company. Yes, Councillor. Yes, please. Oh no, wait a minute. No, we've got some other people who wish to speak. Councillor Lemons first.
I too have a question. I actually have difficulty with the wording of this particular motion. I understand its intent, but I actually think saying to consider the final candidates is premature. I don't know what's going to happen at that council meeting. It may well be that the people that are looked at are not the final candidates, and I think that putting the final candidates, I think maybe we could reword that by saying that is the candidates, but to actually put final candidates presupposes that that's the first and last meeting we'll be having, and I can't say for a fact that that's likely to happen, I'm afraid.
Okay,
Sorry.
can I suggest that you change the word final to proposed? Yes. If you've read the minutes from the CEO committee, then you will not understand where we're coming from.
No, not really, but it's quite life. Yeah, okay.
You okay with that, Councillor Piggott? Councillor Jones? Councillor Davey, you have a question.
Thank you. I support the motion, but I do have a question. Would we be sent a link? I mean, in what way would we be sent this information
I'm assuming that
if this motion is carried?
I'm going to assume that it will be done in the same way as we received CVs, and that will be by a you'll be provided with a password, but I'm not sure until I've spoken with Morton Phillips. But what happened last time, we were provided with a password and all of us had to access those documents via a security password. Councillor Davis?
I'll speak to the motion. I will vote for it. I support the motion. I'd like to say that I'm very concerned about the information that we've been given so far. I haven't been provided this information previously, and I requested it last Friday, and essentially I'm in the complete dark as to what we're supposed to be doing on Saturday, and I've heard it piecemeal from different members of council or as to what's going to actually happen. As far as I'm concerned, I have very, very little information and currently don't have the capacity to understand what we're going to be talking about on Saturday. What are the motions that are going to be, that are going to be considered? I've heard, not officially, not through the agenda, what's proposed to be happening, and so this entire process has been incredibly untransparent in my view, and I've found it very, very difficult to get information that I'm permitted to get under Section 61 of the Act. I've had a lawyer write to me today on behalf of one elected member telling me that I couldn't get this information or that I should consider that it's confidential. I think that's completely abhorrent and outrageous that an elected member of a democracy in the Western civilization can't even find out who the candidates are that are being considered, how many people applied, and any information in relation to them at all. And I've been asking for this since Friday. This is a really good step, and it potentially gives me the information that I need to actually make a decision and do my job as an elected member. But to have to be sent letters from a lawyer on behalf of another councillor or another member is outrageous in my view. There is still other information that I require. I would like to see the minutes. I would like to see the CVs of any candidates that were limited. I'd like to see any information that was provided to the committee. From my point of view, the committee is subservient to this council, and a committee member is subservient and should have less information than I should as a councillor. We wear different hats. Sometimes we wear a committee member hat, sometimes we wear a councillor hat. But I get every single piece of information, and I feel that I am completely being shut out of this process, and I cannot find the information that I need to, despite numerous requests, to actually do my job as an elected member. And that is incredibly frustrating. This is a great step. I look forward to receiving the CVs. I guess it's Thursday at 2 p.m, and I hope that the administration, that is their understanding of the motion, because it's not clear, but however you understand it, that you'll provide the CVs at 2 o'clock. I suppose that's good enough for me. On Thursday, but I do want to express my frustration over the lack of information that I've been provided leading up to, and I've said this multiple times, the most important decision that this council will ever make in its term of office. There is nothing that trumps this decision, and I've had less information than ever before. So I thank Councillor Pickett for his motion. I still have concerns, and I'm still requesting other information, and I reiterate how shocked I am at the pushback that I've had to get information that I'm required, that I need to do my job.
I don't see any other names on the list, so I shall go back to Councillor Pickett.
Yeah, thank you. Look, this motion can only be a good thing, I think, so I think that's right. I will take the opportunity, though, to just explain and I guess you'll understand the frustrations of not being on the committee as opposed to being on the committee. I do understand quite well, because I've sat in this seat and spoken about them earlier on in the year. There was a schedule of what the committee was planning on doing in regard to the recruitment, which included appointing a consultant, have the consultant shortlist, have the committee interview that shortlist with the view of making a recommendation to council. In the absence of that not being a unanimous recommendation of the committee, then providing a number of candidates to council for their consideration, and that is what has happened. So while I sort of feel the pain of Councillor Davis, I feel that it's not. He needn't worry particularly. The committee has done as it was asked, but it does require council's input in order to complete the process. So that said, I appreciate your support on this motion. Thanks.
Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Right.
We move on to reports of officers. Office of the Executive Officer.
Office of the Executive Officer, 13.1. Who wishes to withdraw that, please? Just giving... Oh, Councillor Jones.
I don't want to withdraw it. I need to declare a perceived conflict of interest.
All right.
For 30. So do I do that now or?
Do that now.
Yeah. I have perceived conflict of interest. Bridget O'Neill, who's on the Audit Committee of Norwood, who Norwood are proposing to be on the ERA Water Audit Committee, is a colleague of mine at work. So I will need to, I will withdraw from debate and not vote.
When there is a debate, then if there's no debate, you don't need to leave.
Right.
So we're just going to wait now. Is there anyone who wishes to withdraw it? No, you can't
So I
vote.
will leave.
No one's pulling it.
No one's pulling it, so now you can leave. And Councillor Cornish, we'll just wait till... It'll be very quick, I think. just hurry up then.
Peter?
Okay. Moved by Councillor Cornish, seconded by Councillor Lemon. Those in favour?
I have a question.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Davey.
Does the nominee live in Burnside?
No questions. It wasn't withdrawn.
Ah,
So there are no questions. Thank you for reminding me.
I can answer it later.
Right. So I'll just raise your hands again. Those in favour? Those against? Carried.
Aaron, would you mind letting Harvey know? Thank you.
Right, next is the Burnside Retirement Services Incorporated, recruitment of independent board member. 13.2. We have to withdraw that one, so I'll leave that one for now. 13.3. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. But we didn't have, we have to do that 13.2. Right, so 13.3, who wishes to withdraw it? Peter, you wish to withdraw it? Yes. Thank you. 13.3. Oh, we haven't got anyone for 13.2. Well, I will. I'll pull that one. I'll withdraw that one. Okay, 13.2 is me. 13.3, annual committee surveys, Councillor Cornish. 13.4. Does anyone wish to withdraw that one? No? Okay. Helga, you're moving the motion. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Davey. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Policy review, telecommunications facilities on council land. Councillor Davey, you wish to withdraw it? Chambers Gully Rifle Range, 13.6. Councillor Jones, you wish to withdraw it?
Yes, please.
Review of sponsorship. Anyone wish to withdraw that one? Right. You'd like to? You, Councillor Lemon. Okay. We go back now. Okay. 13.2 requires some understanding and some decision making in relation to the board. This will be the last time that this committee will actually interview and select someone to go onto the board, because the charter has changed so that elected members will not be on it, aren't on it anymore, and they will in future deal with their own selection. Now, what we require tonight, I believe that's the case.
That's not come to us yet.
Oh, that's not come to us yet, Mr. Cooper.
That's right.
Has that not come to us yet about the charter? So we're
Yeah,
still working under the
that'll be the
existing.
next meeting.
That's the next. Apologies.
So
Apologies.
Council will have to make that.
Yeah, council will make that determination at the next meeting. Okay. So what we have to do in relation to this one tonight is select 2 people to be on the interviewing panel, along with our acting CEO. I do wish to nominate for this position, because some of you may or may not know, but I have been a board member of that board for 8.5 years. And although I'm no longer a member of the board, I think I actually really understand the way it functions, what the needs are of the board, and for that reason I would like to nominate. Yes. Now, if there's anyone else who wishes to nominate. Okay, sorry, I apologise. I'm just trying to explain why It's not usual for the mayor to put their name forward, that's all. Okay, are there any other nominations, please?
Yes.
I wish to nominate.
I wish to nominate.
Well, hang on a minute, we've got, okay, councillor Turnbull and councillor Lemon would like to both nominate.
Anyone else?
Is there anyone else who wishes to nominate?
So three of them. So that's three.
Right, so there are three. So therefore there will be an opportunity for people to speak and then we'll have a vote. And I think Helen's organising that. I've just been told that we can have all three. I'll take guidance from the rest of the committee. Are you happy to have all three, or would you rather have just two? The committee that selects, that does the interviews for the new board member.
Someone would need to move that motion. So Grant.
You're happy to move that and change it to three? And seconded by Paul Hubel. Okay. Seconded by Paul Hubel. Right. Councillor Davis, you...
Yeah, I would like to raise a concern that it appears to me that the presiding member is essentially trying to influence the chamber so that it doesn't go to an election. Now, if that's what the council decides, that's fine, but it seems apparent to me that you're trying to encourage elected members to move in a certain way and change the recommendation so you don't have to go to an election, and you're using that as your power as chair. And now that influence, I feel, needs to be treated with caution. So I just make that point.
Noted. Anyone else wish to speak?
Put it to the vote.
I shall put it to the vote.
No, I'm not.
No, sorry, you've got the opportunity to go back.
Look, just on that, I think, I mean, the role of the mayor obviously needs to be done carefully. There's no question. I guess in the past when we've done this and there's been three people wanting to go into two spots on something like this, that's what we have done. So I don't see it's any different this time. So all three of them are very keen to be on there. Up to a point, more the merrier. Thanks.
Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Councillor Cornish, Community Survey.
Thank you, Mayor Monso. I will actually seek leave from the meeting to suspend formal meeting procedures for a period of 10 minutes to discuss possible options for questions. The reason why I'm proposing that, seeking that leave is I know there are a number of members around the chamber who would like to propose different questions in this Part B, and obviously going through amendment after amendment after amendment is not a conducive way of running that process. So I thought if we hash them out first and then we put up one motion and we get it right in one go.
Councillor Davey, you seconding that? Those in favour? Those against? So, we're in informal mode, so Councillor Davey, your name is on the list here to speak first.
Oh. Sorry, I haven't got my head together. I wanted to move that...
No, we're not moving, we're just having informal discussion. You just seconded going into informal discussion.
I wanted to ask a question about a cat curfew, so that we've actually had a discussion about cats on recently, the 24th of September meeting, I think, and we've got a report coming to us. I've had the issue raised with me numerous times about cats roaming at night. We've had a very interesting research paper sent to us in September when we were discussing the issue previously. So I'd like to see a question, and I think there'd be great benefit to have a question included in our community survey that asks that should a cat curfew be introduced so that, along the lines, so that owned cats in the city of Burnside are contained or confined to the home between dusk and dawn. It's pretty straightforward. but I think our community would benefit from that, and I think we'd get some really good, it's pretty straightforward, yes or no answer. Thanks.
Councillor Cornish.
Yes, I would also like to add a question regarding 40 kilometres per hour in our local streets in suburbs. We did ask this question in the 2015 annual survey. However, in the last 6 months, Councillor Henschke and I have been approached by a number of residents in 3 different suburbs in our wards, raising issues regarding traffic safety and speed. And obviously, before you can go down this process, you really do need to make sure that the community is behind it. And this is a statistically valid survey. Last time it was only a 32% yes, they'd like to go to 40 kilometres per hour, and it's almost been 5 years now, so whether or not we actually get an update on that figure, the local community may have changed their mind slightly. So I'd like to see something around 40 kilometres per hour in our local streets included in the survey. So that's one of the questions that I'd like to see in there.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I would like to see some questions, again, along the theme that Councillor Cornish has brought up about the speed of traffic, but also expanding on that a little and asking the community about the theme of rat races that occur through suburbs that surround the city. For example, there are people, residents are well aware of a number of rat races in peak hour traffic. And that ties in with Councillor Cornish's question around the theme of the speed of traffic, because these rat races occur through pedestrian areas where lots of people congregate and gather to buy things from shops and go to doctors and so forth. And it's just becoming a big problem, and we have pressures from Glenside and, of course, Burnside development. Okay, so, and then again on the theme of cars, asking a question, Mayor, about the infill development, the objectives with the 30-year plan for more infill development, and asking the residents what they feel about the impacts on their amenity and parking. We are aiming for greater density near the city, and the City of Burnside has residential areas, and we just need to know what's enough. You know, what population are we aiming to have in these inner city zones? What's acceptable before it becomes just too much and we destroy the character of our areas? So thank you.
Councillor Lemon.
Green? Oh, thank you. I just got comments to make about both those suggestions right now. I actually think that we've got 3 questions to ask, and those 3 questions ought not be free-form questions where you're going to get 800 different responses. So getting to what Councillor Henschke's just said, well, asking questions about rat runners, what would we ask? You get a lot of cut-throughs in suburbs. Should we shoot them? Yes, no. Should we shoot their tyres out? Yes, no. In terms of infill development, what are we going to ask? Do you disapprove of infill development? I can tell you what the answer is going to be. 800 people are going to go yes. So we need to be really careful about how we ask the question to get any sort of information back that we can use in any way whatsoever. So my suggestion would be, on infill development, we could actually have our next survey next year, our whole survey could be on what the city's going to look like, and it would be very topical given that we'd run it just after the new planning laws come into place. And I actually think that we should really put our minds to a proper survey about what our people want, rather than have 1 of 3 questions that might give us not very much information at all. In terms of the cats, I know Councillor Davey is very keen to keep cats indoors at all times of the day and night. But I actually again think this is a waste of a question, because until we have any background at all on whether cat curfews have worked, where they've been put in place, what has happened in those places, does it make a difference, it's pointless asking this question. So I know cat curfews exist in some other council areas, and I actually would like a report on that at some stage before we start looking at even how we would formulate a question like this. We've got no background, we've got no information at all on how successful that's been. And I think, again, this is a waste of a question. We're going to get the answer yes or no or maybe, but it's not going to tell us very much in terms of how efficient something like that is. Let's get background information first. And to get back to the 40 kilometres, that's actually, I have residents in my area, particularly in Amberwoods Drive, who said, we want Amberwoods Drive to be 40 kilometres. Well, actually, nobody drives more than 40 kilometres in Amberwoods Drive. I drive there regularly, except there's one residence that speeds. Now, I don't see why we should actually change the speed limits in that place when you could just go and knock on that person's door and say, stop speeding. So I'm a bit worried about this 40 kilometres. Is it across the city? Are we looking for it across the city? Because in my area, I have difficulty doing 40 kilometres a lot of the time. So I just feel that in terms of these questions, we've got 3 of them. What are they going to give us? They need to be properly formulated to actually give us anything meaningful that we can take away and start making decisions on. And personally, I'd actually like a very cleverly worded, and I don't mean sleazily cleverly, but a carefully worded question on whether people actually support a wheel park in a park near them. That's what I'd like to see, because I think that will give us the sorts of answers we can then go forward with consulting with other nearby councils. I'm still being lobbied by people, and I'd like to know what the general population, what the view of the general population is, with a question that has got validity and isn't just a knee-jerk reaction. That's what I'd like one of these questions, or in fact all 3 of these questions, to be, personally. The other stuff isn't necessarily, we're going to decimate it if the questions aren't well worded.
Right, I need someone to move for an extension of time, because we only have 1 minute and 18 seconds left. Councillor Davey moving.
Well, it's actually a leave, so it's 2/3.
Sorry. Councillor Cornish, you're seconding? Yep. All those in favour? Okay, thank you. Carried. The next one on the list is, for another 10 minutes. Right, Councillor Pick.
11 minutes and 18 seconds. That should be heaps of time.
Use the whole time.
10 minutes and 58 seconds.
A couple of questions. Are we absolutely limited to 3? Yeah? Why is that?
The reason is the survey is designed such that there's a maximum of 15 minutes, preferably under. Any time over that, and people don't really want to take part in the survey. As you would have seen in the report, there's quite an extensive amount of information that we're trying to explore from a strategic level for administration for our future strategies, and allowing the 3 minutes, the 3 questions, brings it up to that 15-minute mark.
Right. Okay. I've got a few comments. I'm with Helga on the planning. I actually felt that it's obviously not possible within the 15 minutes, but I feel we should look really closely at the planning situation and see what information coming out of a survey of the city would be really useful for us when we're trying to shape legislation, as we're going to have to try and do in the next 12 months. So that sounds like that would need to be a separate survey, does it? Yeah, okay. I'd like the 40 kilometres per hour. I'd like it asked in a sort of a local way. I assume that we can tell where people, which ward or which district people are in, because I think doing that across the city would be good, and because I think there are stories, I'm sure, like Helga has told, where it's not really the appropriate mechanism for the issue, but there are others where it is actually quite a resource, I suspect, to reduce overall speed through some of our suburbs. So I actually quite I quite like that one. I also like the cat one, strange enough. We haven't had the report yet, but I think the curfew is, let's face it, this bylaw hasn't got too many levers to pull. One of them is a potential curfew. And I would like a question along the lines of, you know, whether people thought it was practical or along those lines, just to get a sort of feel of you know, there'll be people that will absolutely hate it, no question. But what this does, though, is talks to everybody, whether they've got a dog or cat or no pet at all. And so from that point of view, what you get out of a survey like this, I think, is actually quite useful in a question like that. So I guess if we've only got 3, I felt we've already had the question around support of a wheel park in previous surveys, actually, and it was good enough to get us to where we are in regard to the wheel park. So going out again, unless it's suddenly died away and we should stop it, I don't see it actually does much for us in regard to the wheel park argument. So I would argue that perhaps that comes out. And my final one was 2.3, where it talks about support the needs of members of the community who are living with retirees. So I wasn't sure that was the, I was having a go at the English. Disabilities and retirees. I'm sure they do need support. But yeah, look, if we've only got 3, I go for 40 kilometres per hour and I pull out the wheel park. If we've only got 3. Couldn't we just push them to 16? How many seconds a question? Yeah.
Councillor Davis?
Yeah, hurry up.
Serious question. How many seconds for a question?
That's hard to quantify because some questions are actually far more in depth, and we ask on a scale of 1 to 5, strongly agree to strongly disagree, and have a whole series of options, or it might be just a yes no. So that's hard to quantify.
You'll be good in politics.
Oh, I know. Yep.
Matters more complex than that. Stefan Knoll said this morning. In relation to the wheel park, so I've been in very close contact with groups who are avidly for it, and I've been yelled at by groups who are very much against it. And the one thing that they share absolutely in agreement was that the consultation was wrong. And they both highly agree that if it had been done better, then the result would have gone more the way that they were naturally inclined to believe it, that they inclined to believe in. So I've said to them, well, what do you want me to do? And so in my view, the wheel park, if we can get a statistically valid survey, that would really help me understand it, because there's been, rallies of people against it and rallies by people for it. We don't really know what the people in the middle or who aren't on the polar ends of that have really said. So to me, having a statistically valid survey on this would actually be, in my view, really helpful, because it can't, it would settle the issue for me.
Didn't we last year though? I thought we had a figure.
Yeah, but
statistically valid.
It wasn't statistically valid. So it was opt-in.
We need a figure. Do you want to spend $1 million?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So would you I would say would you be happy to put a skate park, call it a skate park, or a wheel park, I suppose, because it has bikes, but designed for ages between the ages of 6 to say 25, something like that. That would be the question that I would suggest in relation to the wheel park. That's the only one I'm going to speak on, because that's one that I'm most passionate about that gets in, because that would allow me to actually understand what the community wants. At the moment, I've got 2 very angry mobs, and they're about equal size, and so having a valid statistical survey would actually answer the question for us as to which way we should go. Yeah.
Councillor Hughes?
I just had more of a question that I'm hoping I can put to the floor that may be answered. I'm just wondering if we don't know who put up 2.1 and 2.3. Perhaps they could just give some background as to their intent and what their thought process was around the question, because I guess well, I know, but I guess I'm just asking for people to explain, because I'm just not sure, I guess, what we can do in terms of 2.1 as a yes/no question, and 2.3, obviously, yes, we should be serving a great majority of the community, a range of people within the community, but I'm just wondering what people were saying that we may get out of that. So if people could perhaps, as part of this discussion, respond, that would be great.
Councillor Turnbull?
I'd like to talk to 2.1, thank you, Mayor. It's Burnside, we have tree issues all the time, so that I think that definitely needs to go in. And I have a sort of a question that I think could be one. that we know about regulated trees with a circumference of 2 metres or more. It's measured at the height of 1 metre above the ground level. So my question would be, in order to help and preserve trees that are not quite this large, would you like to see a regulated tree requirement reduced to include trees with a circumference of 1.5 metres or more? Sort of, the council makes that rule, because a lot of trees are decimated because they're just a couple of centimetres out of that area. So just a changing around of the trees.
It's a state law, not a council law.
Pardon?
It's a state law.
I understand.
We can have a bylaw, couldn't
I've
we?
understand it just discussing it with the administration is that this is a statewide regulation in terms of the size and the dimension of the trees.
Can't council have a bylaw with their own?
It is a good question. The definition of those regulated or significant are standardised by the state. So that's what we follow.
So can't have it. Okay.
Councillor Hubel.
Thank you. Trying to be quick. Look, I think I really agree with what Councillor Davis said about the wheel park. I think this is a very contentious issue, and I think seeking more clarity can only be a good thing. So I strongly believe the support for the wheel park should be in there. And I guess in a very similar vein, in terms of active communities, some information I'd like to see from the residents of the city regarding bike lanes in the city. I know there's strong research from around the world that a lot of people don't commute on bikes because it's not safe enough, and that separated from road bike lanes actually increases bicycle commuting a great deal. And I think that is something that we really should be exploring for lots of different reasons. And I think is something that can be posed in a fairly yes-no way in terms of, do you support separated from the road bike lanes in the city? So I'll throw that out there for everyone's consideration. I think it's something we could easily throw in and would give us some good information.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to endorse the 40k per hour question, a question on that, and endorsing what Councillor Cornish said. We did have this query and we actually trialled it in Beulah Park and Kensington Park. But I think a lot of things have changed since then, and I think it'd be very worthwhile asking the question. And again, I support a question on cats and cat curfew or cat containment, cat management. And I do support a question also on the wheel park, but I'd like to see a figure in there, because what everyone said is absolutely right. We're being bombarded with questions and lobbying about it. But I think our community should have an indication of what one would cost. So they're the ones that I'd like to see in the questions. Thanks.
Before we move on, we've only 44 seconds left of the second lot of 10 minutes. So I need to leave the meeting to extend, because I've got 6 people on the list who haven't, most of whom haven't spoken yet. Half of whom haven't spoken yet. Another 10 minutes? Those in favour? Okay, thank you, carried. So the next one is Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's almost disappointing that we can only limit ourselves to 3 questions. We're asking residents 15 minutes worth of questions, and here we are haggling over whether it's 3 or 4 questions. I was thinking maybe there could be a question elsewhere in the report that we could chop out and insert with these topics, because cats, whether we support a cat night curfew or not, to me that seems very important. Should we have a 40km/h in side streets? To me that seems very important. Trees, very important. And I think the wheel park, we promised at that meeting that we would consult further, and this is part of that consultation. So we did say we'd do more market research, so I think we owe it to ourselves and the community to do more consultation on the wheel parks. That's 4 very important issues, and here we are having to sort of weigh up the top 3. So that's where my support lies. I do have a question, however, if I could ask. I know there's nothing perfect. No matter what route we go down, there's going to be flaws in either way. But I am particularly conscious that we make sure that we seek feedback from all demographics in our area. Now, my concern is that this is a telephone survey. I'm assuming that's a landline survey. It's mobiles as well. So which is good, that's good. So what mechanisms do we have in place to ensure that the market research is balanced across all demographics, young, old, middle-aged and so forth?
So the caddy process is that they'll continue to call until they get everybody that's ticked off in the demographic. So they have obviously an agenda of a demographic they need to achieve. That's also by age and sex. And they will continue to call until they receive representative in all of those categories.
So it'll be evenly split?
Yes.
That's good. Thank you.
Can I suggest that we do a show of hands as to whether everyone's in favour of the wheel park, so then we limit ourselves to discussion on the other two? Because then if we can strike one off the list, and then when we go forward to say, these are the two apart from the wheel park.
I suggest go with 4. What's each for 30 seconds in the survey?
Well, why don't we do that? Can we do a show of hands of who wants to go with 4 questions? Do you want to
Can I just respond by saying Councillor Hughes did ask for the person or persons who put those questions 1 and 3 on the board. And no, it wasn't Jenny actually, it was Councillor Dawes, and he hasn't spoken yet. Jenny raised the question, but I do know for a fact it was Councillor Dawes who put that one up. And I actually put up the one about the wheel park and the one about disabilities. Sorry about the wording of disability. That was actually, my focus was really more on disability because it does tend to be something that's actually hidden. And although we have to be DDA compliant, there are many other things that people who are living with a disability can identify for us that are needs within our community in terms of whether it be playground equipment or paths or walking trails or, you know, so that was my reason for that one. And then I'm going to ask if Councillor Dawes, if I can get everyone to just turn their lights off and have Councillor Dawes speak, and then I'm going to go back to what Councillor because everybody else on my list has spoken already at least once, all right? We can still go back and do that as well, if that's what the wish of the meeting is. All right, so Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, the Burnside ward, the number of significant trees that were removed in 2018 was more than the other 5 wards combined. So I thought that we should have a question concerning council support for the retention of significant and regulated trees. I threw it back at Bernie, I think, and also Barry to think of how we can word it, because we want a yes or no answer. And I take Councillor Lemon's point that we can't have a question where we don't actually get a yes or no response, or you don't get the stats that we need. So I had added there, and I wasn't too sure this is the way to go, by saying even if this means legal costs could be involved to retain these trees, because that's the situation we've got ourselves into, that when we have developers out there that want to remove trees and we got caught up with whether we agree or disagree, and if we're so strong in it, it does mean that our legal cost will be involved. Now, that was what I was getting to, you know, are they the most important item for residents, regulated and significant trees? Jenny and I, Councillor Timber and I, see it time and time again within our own ward. So let's ask the residents what they think, and that was my reasoning. Thank you.
Be guided by the meeting. Is it okay if I go back to Councillor Davis?
Yeah, can I ask a question by show of hands? Who would like to put in 4 questions to the survey, noting Bernie's scaredness? Yeah, give me a consequence. Yeah.
One of the questions that we had put in there was around the planning reforms. A representative survey from a council is not really a mechanism to give response to the state government about the reforms, we were going to use it as almost like a Dorothy Dixon, where you say, are you aware this is happening? More of an awareness raising. And of course, anything around the planning reforms that we might want to actually represent our community on, the best mechanism would be to put in a submission on behalf of council. That said, there's potential that section could be removed if the council is comfortable with that. And then, of course, what the other councillors are saying was looking at focusing on more information about the planning in the next survey, if that's what they choose to do.
Okay, so you'd suggest
So
take out that
what I'm
question
saying
in
is
favour of
we could remove one that administration had looked to having, if we wanted to look at having 4 from the elected.
So you're saying there's a planning question already?
There was a
not as
planning
part of
question,
this?
but as I said, whatever information we get back from the community to us is not really value to the state government. There's a different mechanism for giving submissions for that process. So we could remove that.
So to clarify, the 15 minutes is 3 questions we're debating now. At least that question you've put in.
Yeah, and then there's
all the rest.
Yeah,
all
there's
the rest,
topics
the
for
ones that
sport and
compare.
rec and the community survey, the community plan and economic development.
Okay. So can I ask for a show of hands of who would like to substitute the? And I think that's quite right, because we shouldn't really be going out for, not to criticise, but it's only going to really reach 1% of the community or 2% of the community. So I think if we want to advocate for planning education, we can do that in another way, because it's not the most effective way of doing that, in my view. So I would suggest that the council remove that question and allow for a 4th elected member question. Does that make sense?
But when do we get information that is from the community about planning that is going to be part of this process? Are you saying next survey, which is 12 months from now? I'm saying we...
Well, right now, as you know, there's another whole process that's happening around our promotion and our position on the code.
And you're saying that'll inform enough to...
Well, no, I'm not saying that at all. But if you want to explore more themes around that, we could do what Councillor Lemon suggests and focus on that in more in depth next year. On other matters, not just necessarily feeding into the code, because the code would have been, a lot of it would have been done by then.
I know, I'd like some now.
Right. Well, let's go.
We're still talking about the code.
So let's just go with 3 questions from the elected body then.
Well, I don't think the question that Bernie described there does that either. I mean, and perhaps that is a separate conversation. Perhaps we should be doing a specific planning
maybe what we should
survey.
be asking them is something along the lines of, planning code's going to change.
Are you aware?
How would you like information on this? Yeah. You know, like this is our opportunity to say to them, there's going to be big changes afoot. If you think input's bad, you just wait for it. There are things going to happen. How would you like the information? What would you like us to do? And give them a choice. Multiple choice, boom, 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 boom. We'll have lots of information at the end of that.
But the answer I like is 92% of people in the city of Burnside have a problem with, I don't want to go the infill, it's too broad, but you know, an element that's come through.
But you could use that as one of the multiple choice. Do you have problems with infill? Like, these are the multiple choice, and they can tick one of those, and you can get your percentages. What you need is to sit down and say, what do we want out of this? And then you actually formulate the question properly.
And you can include trees in that, in your drop down.
You could.
Heritage trees.
Is it it's a telephone call, isn't it?
Yeah.
We ask multi-questions.
Okay.
So you've got the guy, woman, ticking the boxes on
The trees question that Mike's after is not actually anything to do with the current
No,
plan.
but you could
So-
say, are you concerned that the state laws to protect the trees are too weak?
But what Mike wants to know is, are you happy for the City of Burnside to defend to the death significant trees when a developer wants to knock them down? That's what he's after.
I've got a problem with that, because if the developers are working within the state law,
Yeah.
then
Some fees.
what are we going to do? How are we going to take...
Well, if they are, then we can't stop them. But this is really when there's a...
You could spend money on an investigation. So I've said before, I've had the discussion before, it's like, can we investigate? And they say, well, we don't really want to spend all the money to go and investigate what happened here.
Money on lobbying.
Yeah, if there's nails in the tree, for example.
We're down to 14 seconds of the third lot of 10 minutes.
Let's pick
Councillor
4 and
Hughes?
throw it back to Bernie to sort out which he...
Councillor Hughes, you moving for another 10 minutes? Right, and Councillor Cornish has seconded, so those in favour? Thank you. Carried.
Can I? Yeah. Okay, so the first question is how many questions, right? How many questions do we want to ask? Let's start achieving something here. How many questions do we want to ask? 3 or 4?
It's a bit like the budget, where the administration sets 99% spend and leaves us to squabble over the remaining 1%.
correct?
Aren't we supposed
No,
to...
but the reason for that is that sorry, I'll answer this on your is because every year we ask the same number of questions so we can judge how we're going. So we're saying, do you like the City of Burnside? Are you happy with this? Are you doing this? And then we can track how we're going. So it is really important that we have consistent stuff. Isn't that right?
No, we do it every other year.
Oh, every other year.
Every other year we ask 15 questions that are in a theme potentially.
Oh, okay. Not this year.
No, not this year. This year,
Oh.
so council voted that every second year we would ask the trend
Oh, I didn't know that.
questions. And so now this year
Feels like
is
I've
a
done that.
strategic one where we ask general questions on strategic issues. The key bits of work that are coming up
Right.
is that the annual community plan needs to be refreshed and redone. So that's a major player in the real estate of this annual community survey, as well as economic development and the community's expectations of our role in that area. And also the sport and rec strategy has to be developed, but we need some empirical data or knowledge behind that to actually understand, well, what does the community want from that? So they're the three big key pieces of information that we're trying to seek from an administrative point of view.
Yeah.
So, but what we could say is that, yes, we do want 4 questions out of this exercise tonight, and we could actually throw it back to you because already you are trying to balance it all up. You've obviously taken a position on economic development, for instance, and given that an allocation.
Yeah, and you can balance it.
If we as a group, taking Harvey's point, wanted 4, 5, 6, 7, let's stick with 4, but we should be able to do that, and you probably will be able to solve it without us sort of saying, well, take that out and put that in.
Yeah, look, we're seeking
Is that
4 themes, and within each of those themes, you know, there might be a question around, for example, as you mentioned, let's say if you ask a planning question, we can have the drop down, and you actually get a lot more information about that rather than asking a yes, no, do you support it, or what do you think about it? So we can do that for each of those questions to find as much information as we can out about that topic.
So can I suggest that we at least knock off? So let's go with 4, in my view. Yeah, 4 questions. Nod. No.
So those in favour of 4 questions?
Yeah. Put
Those
your hand
in
up if
favour,
you're in favour of
informally,
asking for
those in
questions.
favour of 4 questions.
Yeah, I don't know what the other.
The testing starts at the end of October, so we're developing the questions now. No, we start early November.
Yeah. It'd be good to know what questions we're currently looking at. But look, in terms of the other 4, can we all agree that Wheel Park should be one of them?
With the figure.
Can I just say, when we're asking that question, I want the sub-question in that is, and would you be prepared to have one in your neighbourhood?
Yeah.
That is very important because that's been my contention.
So yeah, yes, no, would you like a Wheel Park in your neighbourhood?
No, would you like a wheel park, would you be prepared to support one in your neighbourhood?
Okay, cool.
So then the answers are yes, no.
Yeah, cool.
And the die. I'd like to figure.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like a figure on how much we're likely to spend on the cat collection.
Well, that doesn't incur costs.
Okay,
Yeah. Right.
can we agree?
What about bike? Hands up for a question about the Wheel Park. Yeah.
Okay. Those in favour of those 2 aspects of the question on the wheel park?
Okay.
Those in favour, those against?
Yeah.
Okay.
The second question I'd probably consider that I think there's support for is something along the lines of, would you support more infrastructure more bicycle infrastructure within the City of Burnside Council? Does that seem right to everyone?
I think we need to be specific and say off-road bike lanes. That's what the overseas experience is, isn't it?
Off-road bike lanes?
Off the road.
Separated from...
Oh,
Like for a road.
Yeah, not
sure.
just a painted line
Okay.
actual.
It needs to be clear because people think that people go whiz through parks then too.
Yeah.
And that's what they don't want.
But the other thing that people need to understand is that's very, very expensive.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Very expensive.
Very expensive. Foreign road is millions and millions, and it's like,
And then they redid it.
even I could jog for 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, why it's something we should be asking about.
Why can't... Mine is. Why can't we ask... No, I haven't. It's just been going.
I don't think, can I say, I don't think this is a good time to do a question on bicycle, where we have bicycles, because we've done some work before. I think we need to work it up a lot more and engage our community a lot more for specifics, because there's so many variables.
Why don't we ask a general question? Would you like more infrastructure for bikes within the City of Burnside Council?
For commuting, for bikes, it's commuting.
going to take on a different tangent altogether, and I'm going to ask you to eliminate the ones that were actually submitted on time and appropriately as requested. And I'm going to ask you to eliminate those first, or choose those first, and then we'll tackle the additional 3. I think that is fair. Now, we've already tackled number 2, so that's gone. The question about the trees, I'd like to have indication as to whether you support that or do not support that one.
I support it, but we can do this as a motion on notice to lobby the state government to take better actions for the trees. I think that was passed. We put a motion on notice.
But I don't, if we have bylaws, they'll make no difference.
Sorry?
We can't enforce bylaws.
But we can try to...
No, I just want to know whether you want to support this motion at this point or not. So those are in favour of supporting it in this way, or those who are in favour, please raise your hands.
Trees.
Okay, on the tree one, yeah, number 2.1. Okay, those against?
Well, we're not voting, are we?
No, but we're...
No, we've got to get an indication, otherwise we're never going to get anywhere. Eventually we've got to get a motion up, and then we have a motion that's voted on.
Sorry.
Okay, so that one is eliminated.
I would like it subsumed into a wider...
I think Bernie's taken that on board. Okay, the next one is supporting the needs of those people living with disabilities.
Well, what are you trying to achieve out of that?
I'm trying to find out what they want, what they need.
Should we be asking the
Maybe
disability sector, not the general community? Because they might have...
I don't think they would know what the other ones.
There's no such thing as a disability sector.
Well, like people who are actually have struggled with these issues. We should be asking retirees, not young people who are 30 maybe.
What can be developed? They won't know what can be developed. They won't know.
Okay, so maybe this is something. All right.
No, but let's rephrase it.
Okay.
I don't know what can be developed, so I don't think it's a good question.
Well, I haven't phrased the question because Bernie wanted topics. I gave topics.
Could it be,
Um,
does the city of
Councillor
infrastructure to support people?
Jones, did you want to say something on this one? And if the answer is no, then they don't put anything. But if they say yes, I want some improved play equipment, or I want this or whatever.
But again, this is sorry.
Okay, look, I just.
Like with the planning range of drop-down options, would you be in favour of this type of thing?
All I need.
We should be asking 20-year-olds what they think in terms of disabilities and retirees. I don't think they have an informed view. We need to be asking that sector.
Well, 20-year-olds might have a child who's got a disability.
Sure. Yeah, they might. They might not.
Okay. All right, I just would like to have an indication as whether you support it or not. Okay? We don't need to have a debate about it, just support yes or no. Those in favour? Those against? I think I saw 5 all. Can you just put your hands up again, please? Those in favour of a question that relates to disability need?
Can I just make a suggestion? So would the question be something like, does the city of Burnside have enough facilities or infrastructure in place to support people living with disabilities?
No, yeah, it's not. That's it. I can tell you right now, we've wasted our time putting questions.
Therefore, we need to know what they are, which is the sense of the question that I placed there. Okay.
The question, what I'm hearing from you is if there was to be a question around disability and support for people with disabilities, is there would be a drop-down menu of this type of things that can be offered, and whether or not people would support that.
Okay, so we'll start again. Those in favour? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I guess since I was the person who proposed it, I'm going to vote in favour. So at the moment we've got 2, but that might not necessarily mean that it goes in the motion because we're only getting an indication at this point in time. It's not a formal vote. Okay, next one is we're 30 seconds left. So we need another 10 minutes. Thank you, Councillor Cornish. Thank you, Councillor Davey. Those in favour, thank you. All right. Now, our next question is in relation to the CAT bylaw. Cat curfew, because that's the next one I actually saw written to me online, written and submitted online. So the cat curfew.
Can we specify whether it's day or night? It's the night.
It's nice seeing cats walking around. Night time. Night time.
Can you also specify how it's going to be enforced? So how much it's going to cost us? It's up to the household. Yeah, so what if I say, no, we're not going to hold it back?
Okay. In the essence of trying to get through this more efficiently, can I get an indication of those who support a cat question? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think that is. Those against? Okay, so that one's out. Now, the next one was the 40K. So 40K zones. Indication from the floor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against, I think that was 8. Right, so the 40K zones is in the mix at this point in time. And then we had one about bike paths, off-road bike paths. Those in favour? Those against? Right, so I think we now have our 3. Now I would need somebody to move a motion that includes those 3. All right, Councillor Davis? We're closing the informal time now, and it's over to Councillor Davis, who's proposing a motion.
The 3 that I'd like to propose in the motion are the wheel park, more bike infrastructure. Would you like more bike infrastructure in the City of Burnside Council, not the separated thing?
No, we just voted.
This is my motion.
Oh, okay. So we have, if we don't like what he's done, we have.
Then you can vote it down.
What we just did.
Yeah, come on.
Dude, so half of them are tied. Half of them are not, and there's 4 of them. The 40 kilometres,
The bike got voted down.
and then that's it. That's the only 2 things that got up. Oh, okay, then I'll move those 3 then. No, 2.3 was tied.
He is entitled to move a motion, and if you don't like it, you vote it down, and then you put
We'll
up
move an
another one.
amendment if you want. Yeah. Not the off-road thing for the bike infrastructure. Not off-road, just additional bike infrastructure within the City of Burnside. No, not just more bike lanes generally, because we did have a bike policy and now we don't. Yeah. Bike lane infrastructure. Or just bike infrastructure in general.
That's just paths through parks.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay. Further development of wheel park, additional bike lane. And can I just ask a quick question? These questions will be further tweaked, right? Yeah, these are the themes that we want feedback, and then you'll come up with a sensible question that. Yeah, great. Yeah, cool.
40K for our speed zone. In our secondary roads or something.
Or within suburbs.
Suburbs.
Or non-arterial roads. Residential roads.
Otherwise we're going to get support. Just residential roads is fine.
They've got to be known blocks, don't they?
Yeah, kind of.
Separate that from the main road.
Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor Davis?
Yeah, very quickly. I think that 4 questions is fine. We're never going to get... it's going to be difficult to get a majority for a set of 4 questions. I hope that you can understand where this is. The reason for the bike infrastructure is I know there's actually a group that's trying to get more infrastructure within the City of Burnside, and they're active and they're regularly meeting. What I want to know, like we disbanded our bike strategy. What I want to know is, was that a good idea or not? And I'd like to go out further to the community to ask on that. And to my mind, that's something that's been brought up a lot, and I think that there are other councillors here. I don't agree with the separated path thing. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking generally, should we have more bike infrastructure within the City of Burnside Council, not the separated road thing like on Frome Street. I think that's way too much. I lost it. Okay. Goddamn Rob. The suitability of 40 kilometre hours, that's been going on for a long time. I think that would be very interesting. It's certainly in Jane's ward, Councillor Davies' ward, it's been come up a lot. And then the open-ended question for what can be developed should give us a lot of, suggestions. So the other ones are essentially yes or no. The first 3 are kind of yes or no questions, or to a degree, and then the 4th one should be open-ended, so it should take less time. So that's what I would suggest, that we go to the community.
Seconder, please. Councillor Cornet.
Actually, I have Sarah here, Councillor Hughes.
Yes. There you go.
fastest finger first. I will actually support this motion. I did vote for the additional bike lane infrastructure to be considered as part of the previous vote, and I think this gives all-round, I guess, covers off on lots of things that we've spoken about, and I think will give us enough information to make good strategic decisions for the city of Burnside.
Councillor Pickett?
I'm going to vote against it. We did I don't think you'd accept my amendment, but we did do a process. We were asked to put 3 questions. We tested quite hard whether we could do more than 3. We did get permission to do more than 3. We then went through an exercise as a group, and we actually established that only 3 got up in the exercise, which was 1, 2 and 4. And I feel that's what we should put through as council. So I think we should vote this down and put in another one that's just got 1, 2 and 4. I didn't vote for the bikes, so not a particular problem, 1, 3 and 4, sorry. The bikes, but then a couple of others didn't get up on the same process, but they are not up there. And so I think on principle we should just do 1, 3 and 4, which as a group we agreed on.
Councillor Dawes.
Can I just ask a question of Bernie? Just going back to our trees, where do you think that sort of question will come in? You said it would be a wider concept or something. Was that under the planning section of it, or where would you do that?
The conversation that we had was we would look at focusing more effort on the issues around planning and the new reforms in the next survey, because by then some of the reforms will be in place, and then we're seeking feedback on what the community think about.
So there'll be nothing on trees in this survey?
Not from the conversations that have just occurred, no.
I didn't understand it that way. So to me that's such an important... Did I get that wrong? I just looking at administration here.
The motion is there, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And that's what you're voting on now.
But elsewhere in the survey.
Yeah, but I thought we were talking about elsewhere in the survey we were asked a question about trees that wouldn't have to be part of this.
The conversation was not for this survey, but for the next one.
Councillor...
well,
sorry.
Can I just make... Yeah, I didn't think that was... I have to vote against this because I didn't think that was the tenor of our conversation. But I will say this to councillors. We were given a certain date to put in questions. Now, we've spent 40 minutes... At least Councillor Davey put in about cats in advance, and so we knew about that tonight. But, gee, we need to look at our emails more carefully so we can give administration sufficient time to produce reports. That's all I can say.
Councillor Lemon?
Yes, I can't support this either in its current form, but I still have real problems with questions 2.4, where what can be developed to support the needs of members of the community who are living with disabilities and for retirees. I would have hoped that as a council, when we do actually develop things that support the needs of our community, people that are living with disabilities and retirees are members of our community. We have disability-friendly buildings. We have programs for older people and retirees. So I still don't get what we're trying to actually get from this question, because if we're asking the community of a specific demographic of the community, and they are the ones that have got disabilities or are retirees or are both in the same house, what they want us to do for them, I don't think this is the place to be asking that question. I think we can ask that question in different ways in a different venue. I don't know that we're going to get enough information back or anything of value with a huge question like that really comes from nowhere. It's going to sit there like a lump on a log, because none of these actually flow in any way. So people aren't turning their minds to this. And they're not going to be turning their minds to the 40-kilometre speed zone, but that's a gut reaction. But this one is not, and unless it's actually flowing from a theme that's going through as the survey's being administered, I don't know that this is going to work. And with respect, I understand where we're coming from, but I think we need to look at different ways of getting that information. I don't think this survey is the right place to do it, quite frankly.
I don't have anyone else on the screen, so it's back to Councillor Davis.
No, I agree with Councillor Lemon in terms of the last question. I'll still vote it up anyway because I feel that the they move for it. I voted against this one, but I'm going to vote for the whole lot of it. I think Councillor Piggott's critical of 2.2. It's a yes or no question. It's not. We're not talking sheep stations here. So, and in relation to Councillor Dawes, I completely agree. My only question for tonight that I really wanted to come in was a wheel park. Now there have been other suggestions by other people, but yeah, it definitely should have been put in beforehand if you had something else. So I completely agree with you. And in trees, we should move that as an alternative motion. Like, I think that we should be lobbying the government. I think that's certainly something we can do, and this council can just resolve that way, and we can do that as a motion on notice. I don't think going out to our community really gives us that much of a mandate. I think we can do that as a council and do everything we can to push that. I don't disagree with that at all. I don't think we need to ask anybody, because I'm already voting for any motion to go and change that. So I don't need feedback from anybody as to what they think. That's why I wouldn't include it in here. Look, I hope you support 1, 2, 3, 4. Otherwise, Grant, I think, has an alternative motion to remove 2.2, and then it won't take so long. So yeah.
Those in favour? Those against? Not carried. Okay, so we do have an alternative motion. Is that you, Councillor Piggott?
Yeah, basically everything except for 2.2, but I pulled the right one out. Nothing more to add.
Seconded by Councillor Davis? Sorry, there's no name on here, so I was looking. Okay. All right. Do you wish to speak? Do you wish to speak? Okay. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of the amended motion? 1, 2, 3, 4. Those against? 1, 2. Right.
So I'll have 2.1 from the original, taking it from the top, 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3 from the last one. No, the one, the original. Yeah, bike lane. 2.2, yeah, and that can go in there in any order. I think we can do excellent, because I think we can do Mayor Monceau's I think we can look at this in different ways and get better information elsewhere. So that is my motion, and I hope you support it. Henry, pay attention.
Councillor Davies seconding.
No, she's... Yes. Sorry, press the button. Yes, I'm happy to second this. I think those three are totally reasonable questions to include in the survey, and we'll get some useful information. And I think the other issues are very important, but they can be raised. Oh, thank you. The other issues certainly are very important, both about the trees and disabilities and retirees. And cats. My cats, yes. Cat containment. And they can be addressed in other ways. So I'm happy. I think we should go with this. So hopefully you'll support this one.
Councillor Carbone, you wish to speak?
I have the call.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Davis is first.
Yeah, I'm going to support. I've supported all three motions, and I will support this one. And I do think removing 2.4 is good. You can't just vote against everything, because otherwise we'll never get anywhere, because you'll never have a majority. So I urge members to vote for this motion, even if you might be slightly unhappy that it's not perfect 100%. We've got to get to the end of the night. We've got to vote for something. So you're not going to be happy with everything.
Councillor Carbone.
Just a question, Your Worship, just to clarify things. So 2.1, we will specify about the localness. And also just with 2.3, look, I don't think the average person knows what a bike lane infrastructure actually means. So will this be dumbed down to everyday language so there's no... Sorry?
Dumbed down. No, the intention would be that there'd be the general question, but we'd be asking their opinion on things like You know, should there be bike lanes? Should there be a bicycle strategy? What other infrastructure would you like? Should there be separate, you know, we'll ask a whole lot of different, drill down to find out what exactly they like about bike lanes or bike infrastructure.
I was always led to believe that don't use a $10 word when a $2 word does just fine, so thank you.
Councillor Hend.
Thank you, Mayor. A similar question to Councillor Carbone. On the 2.2, the 40k speed zone question, will that also drill down into the question of do our residents like cut-through traffic, as we discussed earlier? And that's been noted.
Through the Mayor, we could mention that, but it's actually not the intent of a 40-kilometre question. It's quite a different question.
Yeah. It is a different question.
Right. And the other question is, in the main body of your questions, will there be questions regarding the 30-year plan?
No, there are not.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Lemon? All right, I shall put to vote. Those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. Those against? Carried. We now move on to 13.5, Policy Review for Councillor Davey, Telecommunications Facilities on Council land.
Thank you, Worship. I have an addition to the motion. Have you got that, Rob? That reads, one, that the report be received. 2, that Council adopt the revised telecommunications facilities on Council land policy, with 12.1.3 to become all trees, including significant trees, are to be retained undisturbed and their long-term viability shall be protected. Now, in speaking to this, I thank the staff for their work on this policy and updating it, and it's all fine. The only problem I have is on page 67 at part 12, which is restrictions on construction, operation and maintenance activities. 12.1.3 at the moment reads, significant trees are to be retained and undisturbed and their long-term viability shall be protected. I want to add the all trees before that, just to reinforce that I don't think we should be having any trees removed to facilitate telecommunications, towers, whatever, on our council land. So this would be used as guidance for planning activities. I think every alternative should be looked at before removing trees. So it's just to complete the approach, which is to signify the value we have on all trees and that we don't want our trees in our reserves or parks or on our land being removed to facilitate telecommunications equipment. We've spent thousands and thousands replacing trees. They're hugely valuable assets, and as well as significant trees, I'd like to see, I think we need to see in there all trees. So hopefully you'll support this. Thank you.
Second line, just change tress to trees. Councillor Hughes, you wish to second it?
I wish to second and I don't have anything further to add.
Councillor Davis?
I just had a question of the administration. How do they feel about that amendment?
That's what they're just talking about.
Do you want me to filibuster for a while so you can...
No.
I'll wait.
In the beginning.
Through your worship,
Would you like to bring
the statement as written is absolute. So it doesn't provide any flexibility whatsoever. Now, something that's been introduced into this policy is the definition of technical difficulties. And that is if there is no other, and Alan might jump in at this stage, but if there is no other location that a facility can be placed and a tree may be disturbed, then that's something that you would have to consider through discussion with the administration at that stage. You could add where possible.
Could I add undisturbed, something about exceptional circumstances?
Yeah, that would be.
So all trees, including significant trees, are to be retained undisturbed where possible, wherever possible. Yeah.
Unless exceptional circumstances or something like that.
Unless there are exceptional circumstances.
Doesn't that weaken it?
Could there be an approval process that it's got to
Absolute for that significant tree.
Sorry.
Everything has to be approved by us anyway because it's on our land, so it has to come through us anyway.
Councillor Davis,
I do, because I still have the call.
you've had your answer, so
I have
you still wish to speak, or?
Yes.
Okay.
My next question is, doesn't that actually reduce the teeth of 12.13? Because before significant trees was absolutely, now there's exceptional circumstances.
No, the significant trees would still be subject to a development approval process anyway, so they are protected separately than normal trees.
Okay, sure.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a question regarding the setback distance from these towers to the various places listed in the policy. I note that the policy was developed in 2003. Has that setback distance of 100 metres been reviewed? Should it be greater than 100 metres?
Through the Mayor, I'd have to take that one on notice and come back to you. Given what I've seen in the review, no, it hasn't. I don't believe there's been any information that would make us alter that at the moment from a technical perspective.
And the other question I have is in relation to towers, your Mayor. I noticed in the area mobile phone towers populating the tops of our residential buildings, and they become quite unsightly fixtures to the top of these buildings. My question is, has the City of Burnside received applications for more towers on buildings, or is this on council land?
Through you, Lord Mayor, I don't believe we've had any. This really relates to community land and not privately owned buildings.
Thank you.
Councillor Dawes.
I'm with Councillor Davis here. I think we've made it weaker. I'd like to see the original clause, significant trees are to be retained and undisturbed and their long-term viability shall be protected. And another clause saying regulated and other trees shall also be retained, etc., unless there are exceptional circumstances. Yeah. I don't know whether Councillor Davey, I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's a very good, a fair amendment or variation to the motion, but if Jane and Sarah or Councillor Hughes and Councillor Davey agree, then they could just change it without being a formal amendment.
Did they hear what we were saying because they were talking at the time?
No, they didn't. You'll have to say it again.
Amendment. Can't they just change it?
If they agree, then they don't need an amendment. If they don't agree, then you'll have to move an amendment.
You can have to read it anyway.
Could you please, Councillor Dawes, explain again what it was? Councillor Picker, could you just turn yours off for a moment?
All right, so what I'm suggesting, Councillor Davey and Councillor Hughes, that we leave 12.1.3 as it is, but we add another sentence saying regulated and other trees are to be retained and undisturbed, and their long-term viability shall be protected unless there are exceptional circumstances. So you've separated significant trees from regulated and other trees.
There's two clauses instead of one.
With 12.4 to become, to be inserted as.
You put all together in one.
But it still means the same thing.
No, it means there's no exceptional circumstances as in significant trees.
I'm seconding that amendment.
No, it's not an amendment now because they
Is it
just
not?
made the changes within it without having to be a formal, but thank you. So, I have no names on my screen, so Councillors Davey, back to you to
Yes, can we just be satisfied that... So we actually don't need 12.1.3 mentioned.
No, correct. So 12.4
With-
to be inserted.
Yes,
Get
so...
rid of significant trees.
Poor Rob.
No, I'm having trouble too. I only had a glass of wine. With 12...
All trees.
All other trees. No, all other trees. Ah, I'm just totally...
Get rid of significant trees.
All other trees.
All regulated and other trees are to be retained undisturbed unless there are exceptional circumstances. Yes. So, 12, all regulated and other trees are to be retained undisturbed unless there are exceptional... Thank you. I'm happy. I hope you'll support this. It's all been beautifully crafted. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against, carried. 13.6, I think it's Councillor Jones.
So if I could please just have the motion. We'll keep one, that the report be received. That council requests the administration. This replaces 3. Request the administration. Convene a workshop to consider the report and other potential options for the site. And then delete 3. So, really, I think this is just a case of act in haste, repent in leisure. I would like more time to consider this. I heard about this for the first time Thursday night when I read the minutes. I looked at it and thought, do we really need to make a decision today? I don't think we do. I've had a chat to a few other people. People have had lots of different ideas and good ideas, and I think it would really benefit from us sitting down for an hour and a half, nutting out the issues, which is much easier doing a workshop than we'll ever get in this format, as we know, from just trying to agree 3 questions to ask our residents. So that's what I'm proposing. I think we'll get a better result by having a workshop and discussing it. So, short speech. I am on a challenge to get to 5 minutes from Councillor Cornish, but today is not that day.
Right, seconder, Councillor Hubel.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile considering a range of things. If we end up deciding to go with returning it to bushland, then so be it. But I think it's worth having the conversation, just being thorough.
Councillor Hughes.
Yes, I will support the motion. Thank you, Councillor Jones, for putting this forward. I certainly had some questions during the week, and I think it would be worthwhile all of us nutting out as a group the way forward. I think given the position of the land, that it's not strictly within the City of Burnside, I think there's discussions that can be had with state government as well, and I think that should be done to inform our decision.
Councillor Dawes?
Could I just ask some questions of Carmen, and just to help us before the workshop, I'm thinking here. In there you mentioned a 12-month maintenance program. Is that an ongoing program that you're thinking of there, or we just bring it back to parkland and leave it like it is, or we've got to go back and mow the grass, or what were you thinking of there?
Through the Lord Mayor, no, it would be just return to parkland. There's obviously a cost associated with that, but once it's returned to parkland, that would be it. There wouldn't be any further maintenance.
Right, so then with the Adelaide Hills Council, I see that we've written to them. Are there any expectations from them as to how we're meant to leave that? Are they said to us, oh, you've got to plant this and that, or can we do what we think is best?
Through the Mayor.
Mr Harvey.
We own that land. It isn't Adelaide Hills land. So what we do there is at our discretion. Just to reaffirm or come back to your first question, the 12-month vegetation management would be around the management of the revegetation area, and would be under the care and control of the Conservation Land Management Technical Officer. Will probably involve volunteer groups in terms of revegging back to a pre-building state.
So my next question, is this regarding part of the hill space zone? Are there extra regulations on us as regards to the use of that area?
Through the Mayor, yes, it is part of the Hills Face Zone, and the only thing that we have to do is maintain it for bushfire prevention.
Councillor Dawes, it's likely that all of these questions will be answered in the workshop. And if you've got some questions, maybe you could, let's see if we can get this motion up. What I'm suggesting is that if you have got questions, you could always email them to the CEO, acting CEO, and ensure that those questions are covered in the workshop topics when we do that, if that's okay with everybody else. Councillor Davey, you're next to speak.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I support this motion, but I'd actually like to see the land revert to parkland, and hopefully for our habitat for our birds and native life. And I would like to see, as the building contains asbestos, that's quite a costly exercise to remove, and I'd like to see all the other building materials recycled. I don't want to see it all just blown up and removed. I'd like to see it carefully removed and dismantled, and then the site returned to bushland. But I'm happy to participate in a workshop. I think that's a great idea.
I think it should return to parkland. I'll vote against it. Given our recent discussion on climate change, this is a way that we can actually put in more trees and do more for our environment, to keep the site as is, or put it into another. I don't really see the benefit necessarily in that. So, in my view, we should act on our previous climate change discussions and return it to parkland.
Councillor Lemon?
I'm assuming we pay rates on this land to the Hills Council?
The question was, do we pay rates on this land to Adelaide Hills?
I don't believe so, but if this goes to a workshop, we will have that answer for you on the day.
Thank you, because I wanted to ask, do we get mates rates?
If we do, no, but I don't think we do.
Councillor Hench?
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question. Has the administration, I assume that because we have this recommended motion from the administration, I assume that the administration has spent quite a sufficient time working out what to do with this site and are quite familiar with the issues, and they've recommended demolition of a building. And my question is, has the administration spent adequate time to come to that decision?
It is. We have submitted a report with all of the options that we believed were available for this particular building and this footprint within a much larger space. We have done a bit of a cost-benefit analysis and provided that information to you within a report, and we believed that the best future use of this land is as recommended by the administration. With that being said, it's Council's decision, and we'll follow the resolution of Council.
Right, back to Councillor Jones.
I'm summing up briefly. I think it warrants further discussion, and a workshop would be a place to do that, and it's not going to kill us to have, a couple of weeks delay. So please vote for the motion.
Right, those in favour? Those against? Carried. 15.7, sponsorship. I think that was Councillor.
Thank you. I pulled this inadvertently, but I'm glad that I got the chance to oh no! I'm glad I got the chance to say thank you for being so quick. We had a workshop not long ago. You listened to what everybody said, and you've actually translated that very nicely into this piece of work that you've done for us. So I'm going to move the officer's recommendation, and I say to you both, thank you very much for such speedy and excellent work.
Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Davey, do you wish to speak?
No, other than to thank Barry and Belinda for all the work and endorse
Councillor Carbone.
I just wanted to add my 2 cents worth and thank you as well. In particular, 35.6, which now asks all requests for them to explain how they're going to acknowledge the council moving forward. So I know in previous years we've been giving away all this money, and apart from the selection panel and the council itself, no one knew that we're giving them money. So now that issue has been addressed. Thank you.
Councillor Cornish.
Yeah, again, I'd like to thank you guys for the work. I did try to take it in the workshop probably a little bit too high level, but we are a small council, so I'm more than happy to support the policies you guys have drafted for us. So thanks.
Right, subsidiaries. No, have I missed something? Sorry, I apologise, and we haven't voted. Councillor Lemon. Vote. Thank you. Against? Carried. Now we'll move to 14. Thank you, ladies. Subsidiaries, can I have a motion, please, for relating to East Waste Management Authority? Councillor Davey, moved. Seconded by Councillor Hughes. You have a question, Councillor Cornish?
Yeah, just wondering whether or not there's any development of a long-term financial plan being planned at East Waste. Does the administration know anything about that?
Those in favour? Those against? Carried. I didn't have a microphone on. Okay, Eastern Health, we don't have any reports. Highbury Landfill Authority, a motion, please. Follow the recommendation. Councillor Piggott. Councillor Davis, seconded. All those in favour? Carried. Motion. Councillor Hughes. Seconded by Councillor Piggott.
I have a quick question. Can you tell us how much water we have? Or is that?
Sorry, can we get the question, please, through the chair? No, sorry? No? Okay. Right, those who...
I don't think we voted.
No, we haven't. I'm about to say those in favour? Those against? Don't have anything from Eastern Regional Alliance, and we go down to Mayor's report. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Seconded by Councillor Turnbull. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Reports of members, delegates and working parties as tabled. Don't have to move on that one, do we? Council correspondence and memorials. There aren't any. Other business. I think the only other business now is confidential items. Oh, unless you've got something.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank all involved with the garage sale trail on the weekend. I was a first-time seller at the Glenunga Hub. It was a very seamless process, and I thank everyone involved. For registration, it cost nothing. Made great number of contacts with a lot of people in the community, which was just amazing too. And it was buzzing down at Glenunga Hub. It was really buzzing. It was amazing. So thank you everyone involved, Bernie, and I know there's a few others that I can sell a few of my trinkets to. So thanks.
Oh, can I just like to add to that, to the people that represented East Waste with the East Waste truck at Glenunga Hub, it was spotless, inside and out. The children were climbing over it. Little old ladies got to actually put the arms out for the bins, picking up and take. It was brilliant. So again, for all the staff that were involved, they did us absolutely proud.
Thank you. I'm going to suggest that we make the break now. I know it's only 8:45, but if we have a break now, then it'll give time for staff to depart. Councillor Davey, you wish to?
Oh, I was just going to endorse what Councillor Cornish and Councillor Lemon said, and particularly thank Dr. Roteman for his wonderful information table he had with his games about which waste goes in which slot. It was quite fascinating to watch. So, and it was very good for our non-English speaking background residents, I noticed. So thank you.
Right, now can I suggest that we have a 10-minute break now? Councillor Cornish, you're moving. Councillor Davis, seconding. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried. When we return, the motions are of confidential nature.